Hey there, Wargamers, and welcome back to another Wargames Delivered video. Be sure to visit us at wargamesdelivered.com. We have a brand new Refer a Friend program. If you enter in some simple information, we will give you a $10 discount, and we will also give your friend a $10 discount. So keep that in mind, and with that said, let's get started. In this video, we will show you how to base coat your characters, featuring Robb Stark from the Stark vs. Lannister box set of the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. There are multiple versions of this character out there. This one is the most standard one. We'll be doing some other ones on this channel eventually here. I just got a bunch of different models for the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game, so we will be starting out here with gunmetal, and with this we're going to be coating all of the metallic areas except for the sword. We will be coming to that later on, but for the time being we'll go ahead and leave that blank just because it's going to be easier to get around certain areas on the model if we leave that blank for the moment. So in this step we're really just looking for all of the chainmail bits and all of the metallic pieces, the plate mail on his arms as well. There's a couple other parts like his boots, and we'll go ahead and pick those out and just get a nice solid even base coat. Use 1 to 2 thin coats of this and you should be all set with the gunmetal. And once you've got that all covered, give it about 5 to 10 minutes to dry. We're going to switch over to our first wash step of this model, and with that we're going to switch to dark tone, and with this color we're just going to cover all of the metallic bits that we painted before. Just try to make sure your wash digs into those recesses and sits there nicely. Try to avoid any pooling on any flat areas, especially raised areas. You really want to look out for that. And just go ahead and keep this consistent across all of the metallic areas and give this about 20 to 30 minutes to dry. When you're working on smaller areas like this, you can give it a little bit less time to dry since it's not the entire model. When I wash an entire model, I like to give it about 45 minutes to an hour to dry, just to really make sure that the wash is absolutely dry. But you can absolutely wait about 20 minutes when you're just doing a small area like this. Once that step is dry, you should notice a bit more detail in the shadows of your metallic areas. And moving on from here, we'll go ahead and clean up some of the areas that we were a little bit messy with using matte white. So with this, we're just going to cover any area that doesn't need any metallic on it. Anywhere you were a little bit sloppy or made a couple mistakes, just go ahead and take this and do a couple thin coats over the area that you need to fix, and it should be as good as new. We can switch over to speed painting here shortly. And once the cleanup phase is dry, we'll go ahead and switch over to another metallic here. We'll switch over to plate mail metal. Sorry, I didn't leave the bottle out next to the model here, but we are using plate mail metal to pretty much just highlight all of these metallic areas, give a little bit more brightness to certain areas, the flatter areas, and really just trying to avoid painting in the areas where the wash and the gunmetal has really set into the lower areas. So what you're trying to do here is just brighten your metallics back up a little bit and add a little bit of highlight to them. And key areas when you're working on this would be all of the flat plate areas on his arms, the flat areas of his boots here that I'm working on right now. I like to avoid chainmail with this color so that there's a little bit of difference between the chainmail and the plate mail, but you can absolutely highlight the chainmail with this a little bit if you'd like to. And as you can see with that step, we really just added a little bit of highlight and brightness to some of the areas in the metallics on the model. And moving on from here, we'll go ahead and switch over to our Speedpaint line, starting out with High Lord Blue and Speedpaint Medium here, doing about a 1-to-1 ratio. And we're really just looking to cover his tabard or his inner cloak that he's wearing here. All of the cloth kind of areas we're going to cover with this color. And if you do happen to get any of this color on areas you don't want them, just go ahead and repeat the step that we did to clean up the model with matte white. It's always handy to have a little bit of matte white on your palette when you're working with a slap chop style of painting, and you can go ahead and clean up those areas there. And next up we will pick out some other areas of clothing on the model here with Gravelord Gray. Really just looking for covering the pants with these, and his upper cloak as well. So the shirt that's underneath the chainmail or tunic, whatever you would refer to it as, that's what we're going to cover with this color, and of course the pants that are sticking out as well. And once that's dry, we'll go ahead and switch over to one of our bulkier speed paint steps here. This next shot is going to be a little bit brighter than the rest of the video. I apologize for that. I'm still kind of working out the lighting for the videos here, so again, thanks for bearing with me with all the technical difficulties. So we're going to switch over to dark wood for this step, and we're going to cover the entirety of the cloak except for the fur area up top. We'll go ahead and leave that blank for now. And we are using a little bit of speed paint medium with this as well, just about a 1-to-1 ratio like we did with the High Lord Blue. And we'll also pick out the little fur area right here with this color as well. Another thing to keep in mind while you're working on cloaks and stuff with speed paint, you'll just want to keep it pretty consistent. I kind of stopped in the middle of this cloak here, which is what you don't want to do. You'll want to keep it steady and paint the entirety of the cloak right away, and you'll have the best kind of coverage and consistency with that. But you can kind of fix it as long as the paint's still a little bit wet. So we'll go ahead and kind of blend it together right here in the middle, and you can kind of see how this sort of fixes it. You will possibly have a little bit of separation when it dries, but you can always add a second coat, or just go ahead and switch to an acrylic if you're not happy with the way it turns out. And also make sure to hit the inside of the cloak as well. It may be a little bit easier off of the paint handle to get some of those angles. We'll also cover the boots with this color as well. I forgot to mention that earlier. And as you can see, we had a little bit of splotchiness on the cape, but not too bad. I was pretty happy with how it turned out. So didn't really see a big reason to fix it. Looked okay to me. So we'll switch over to a mix between our Gravelord Gray and Dark Wood. And with this, we will cover the fur part on the top of his cloak here. And this is kind of a larger area, but I am switching to a kind of smaller brush just to have a little bit more accuracy here. A lot of the model is already painted with speed paints. Usually by that point I like to switch to a smaller brush so I'm not painting over those speed paints with another color or just making mistakes in general. I'm pretty bad with thicker brushes with fine detail work, so I always like to switch to a smaller brush for that. And once that's dry, we'll go ahead and switch over to a few final details here on the model for the base coating step. First off, we'll cover the skin with Crusader skin. And again, I mentioned this in my Fallschirmjäger video a little bit earlier this week, but you'll want a very bright zenithal highlight to get this color to work properly for you. Really bright white or a really light gray will work great. You could do a very light beige as well. The first time I used this speed paint, I used a couple of minis that were primed a little bit too dark, and it didn't work out for me. Only after experimenting and working with the paint a little bit more did I kind of realize what I did wrong in the first place. So there is a way to make this work, and it's a very bright zenithal highlight. So with that, we'll switch over to our final step of the base coating process with the speed paints here, and we're going to do a 1-to-1 mix of hardened leather and dark wood. And with this, we'll cover the entirety of his hair. This just gives us a little bit of variation from the dark wood that we put down before and adds a little bit of the redness that Robb has in his hair, at least in the books. And again, using a smaller brush here, working on the hair, just to avoid making any mistakes on the face. That's kind of where your eyes naturally go to on the model, so if you have any issues on the face, they're usually the ones that are kind of glaring at you. So keep that in mind. Always take your time on certain areas like this, or when you're getting close to any face detail. You really want as much accuracy and control of your brush as you possibly can have. And with that, that will basically wrap up this video here. We will have a part 2 on how to add highlights and details onto this model, but for the time being, that's a quick way to base coat your characters with speed paint and not lose any quality. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed our content. And also be sure to visit us at wargames.com to take part in the Refer a Friend program. There will be a link in the description below. Thanks again, guys, and happy wargaming.